Thanks again, Deanna, and you can take it away whenever you're ready.
Well, thank you for such a lovely introduction. And, I think the most impressive thing about going to Cornell is that I can literally tell my children that I walked a mile uphill to school in the snow. So that's my big takeaway from going to school in the Northeast. But
Wow.
yes, so good evening. I am Deanna Meade, and I am a training specialist with STAR Autism Support. And tonight we're going to be talking about strategies around mealtime because with autism and other disabilities, there can be a lot of challenges around the mealtime routine, but also just food selectivity and other eating issues. So we'll look at some of those and share some strategies and resources we have for overcoming those challenges. So again, I am a training specialist with STAR Autism Support, and I am based here in the Dallas area. As a training specialist, I do these types of workshops with caregivers and trainers and all kinds of audiences. But my favorite part is coming into the actual classroom. And this is my second year working with Frisco ISD. We've been in Frisco for several years through a grant from the Texas Education Agency. So we are really lucky to be working with such a great school district, and I'm always impressed with the level of service I see in the classrooms that I visit, and how willing the teachers are to implement our strategies because they're based on best practices for our kiddos. And I always have fun in the classrooms. It's my favorite part of my job. So if you're not familiar with STAR Autism Support, and I believe that this will be mostly for people who watch the recording, since I believe our one participant I can see now, I'm pretty sure I recognize your name from earlier. But STAR stands for Strategies for Teaching Based on Autism Support. And our goal in developing the STAR curriculum was to take all of those evidence-based practices that had all that research backing them, showing how effective they were for students with autism and other disabilities, into the classroom, because they were mostly being used in clinical settings, in ABA-based clinics, and being used by BCBAs. And we didn't want those practices to just be contained there. So we developed the curriculum so that teachers can implement these strategies, and they can do it in a way that's accessible for them, accessible for our students, and is highly functional for not only the school environment, but the home environment. And ultimately, as the students get older, what it's going to lead to independent living and vocational settings as well. So we do that through our evidence-based curriculum, as well as all of the resources we have available on our website, not just for educators, but also for caregivers. And I'll share some of those later. We also provide training and support for all types of educational audiences, administrators, general education teachers, special education teachers, paraprofessionals, and caregivers. I always joke that we'll talk to anybody who wants to learn more. We're happy to provide a training for that. And in addition, our goal is to build capacity within a school setting, but also district-wide. So we train people within the district to coach these best practices so that they can then continue developing those evidence-based strategies within the district, even after STAR has stepped out. So that is one of our main goals. And we really look at a comprehensive approach across all grade levels. We have a primary curriculum that starts with pre-K, and even younger in some places where we have big projects. And then our secondary curriculum can be used all the way into transition programs or 18+ programs. So our goal is really to continue providing support for growth and achievement in all learning environments, not just in a self-contained classroom setting, but in a gen ed setting, and then in learning settings that might occur after school is done. So that's our goal, and I'm very proud to be a member of my organization. So I've know I asked earlier what brings you to our training today and how old your child is. And I'm sorry if I do not remember how old you said your child was, but if you would like to share in the chat whether they are primary age or secondary, and if there's even a specific challenge that maybe you're having around mealtime, if you're here for general resources, I'd love to know what your specific needs are so that I can make sure that we hit upon those throughout the training. And I will leave that open for the chat, and let me go ahead. I just realized that I don't think I'm sharing my screen. So probably be more helpful if I did.
There we go.
It's been a while since I had the coffee. I had a decaf earlier and probably should have caffeinated it up. So yes, in the chat, please, you can share what brings you to our training and how old your child is. And a quick acknowledgement that we know you're the expert on your own child, and every family is different and has different goals and different values for their student and for their family. So we want to take your goals and priorities into account, and remember that collaborating with your child's educators is going to make it all that more effective for implementing these strategies at home and also in the school environment. So remember that you can learn from each other, and we want to give you the tools and the resources you need so that you can meet your family's goals in whatever way best fits you. So we don't want it to seem like this is one size fits all. We just want to give you all the things, and then you figure out what works for you, what works for your family, and we will try to support you in whatever way we can. So our specific goals for today are to talk about some common mealtime challenges. As I said, there are some different challenges. And then what are some of the possible causes of those challenges? We'll look at some strategies that can help your learner either adjust their eating habits or understand mealtime expectations, and then reflect on ways to understand your loved one's eating needs and help them improve. And it's helpful for you to either take notes or just as we reflect, think about meal times with your own family. Oh, and thank you for responding. Yes. Okay. I thought it was a primary school. So 7 years old, and how to better support and be better with time management during eating. Yes. Some kids either eat really fast or really slow. So we will actually talk about that. So autism and eating there are some common challenges when you're talking about ASD. And those challenges can run the gamut. Like I said, some kids are very fast, some kids are very slow, some are very selective, some overeat. There's a lot of factors involved, and so it's not uncommon, and it's important to remember that. And it's also important to remember that a lot of kids go through different types of eating challenges. You have the selective eating, or what we think of as picky eaters. That's not an uncommon challenge. What makes it more challenging sometimes is the different ways that we need to go about teaching the new skills around eating to our students with autism and other disabilities. So that's what we're going to look at today. So if you have specific concerns when it comes to diet or food and what your child eats, whether they're getting the right nutrition, please consult a professional for advice. Go to, ask the doctors, consult food therapists, people who specialize in different types of eating challenges. Our strategies are going to be a little bit more general. So if you have very specific medical concerns, please always direct those towards a doctor. But here are some of the common challenges that we see with students with autism, that they have very limited foods that they'll eat. So accepting fewer than 20 foods, or refusing all foods from a food group. We won't eat anything, won't eat any vegetables, won't eat any type of meat. Constipation, tooth decay, excessive weight loss or excessive weight gain, severe tiredness, coughing, choking, chest infections, missing school or missing social opportunities because they're unable to access the food that might be involved in those activities. Pica, which is eating foods that are, or eating non-food, so eating inedible items. And then eating disorders such as anorexia might also be involved, or even misdiagnosed, especially in girls or women with autism spectrum disorders. So with these types of situations, you definitely want to make sure you're consulting a physician or a doctor or another specialist who can help you overcome some of those medical needs. So again, here are some more common eating challenges around autism and food. Some is we consider disordered eating. And again, that's eating the same foods or avoidance of trying new foods. We get a lot of anxiety when it comes to trying something new, avoiding certain textures. Some kids like really soft foods, others only want crunchy foods. Overeating, undereating, and again, pica. There's environmental factors, sometimes not eating when the food looks different. So I only eat chicken nuggets from one place, and if they don't look exactly like that chicken nugget, I'm going to refuse, because in my mind, that's not a chicken nugget. You won't eat in different locations. This one is very common. In my own classroom, I'd have kids who would eat things at home, but they refuse to eat them at school. And again, it's just because, nope, this is not where I eat that. I eat that at home. Or just being distractible, right? So not sitting and focusing on eating and wandering away from the table. So it's really hard to get a good meal in them because they're just not that motivated to sit and eat. There are also cognitive factors involved. So obsessions or special interests. So if you are just really, really, really focused on one type of food, or you'll only eat things that have the Paw Patrol logo on them, which they actually make a wide variety of foods with Paw Patrol on them, but still. Anxiety around food, coping strategies, a preference for routines and sameness. Again, if the plate doesn't look the same, if the table wasn't set the exact same way, or if the food looks a little bit different than it did, or smells a little bit different, or tastes just a little bit different, then we're going to refuse. There also might be some motor issues, like some actual issues around swallowing and chewing. And so that's something that a specialist should look into as well. So in thinking about your own loved one, what is something that goes well with meal times at home? And then what is a challenge that you want to work on with your learner? So with my own kiddo, he's a good breakfast eater. Like that's usually our big meal of the day, but other times it's like he only wants snack foods, right? I can't get him to eat like chicken and a vegetable or a normal amount of carbs. He's like, I just want pretzels and Nutri-Grain bars and, the snacks that he's used to having. So if you would like to share in the chat, please do. Otherwise, feel free just to reflect on your own star and wish. So when getting started thinking about those challenges around routines, the first thing we need to do is some detective work, right? Like figure out what exactly is the issue here. And we're going to talk about each of these steps in more detail. The second thing is to help the individual communicate their needs. Sometimes it's one of the big barriers is just that language issue. They can't tell us why they don't want the food. Or there's a lot of challenging behavior around food because they can't tell us, no, I'm not hungry, or I don't like that. So how can we teach them to say, no, thank you, I don't want that, and help them choose what they do want? And we'll look at being aware of anxiety and stress levels, because if we make mealtime a stressful time of the day, then that's going to be working against us. They're not going to be likely to change their habits for the better, because it's going to become even more of a thing, right? It's going to be even more of an anxiety producing time. And then model the behavior you want to see. If you want your student to try new foods and eat more vegetables, sometimes our behaviors have to change first. And we need to show them like, oh, look, I don't really like Brussels sprouts, but I'm going to take a bite. Oh, I took one bite of the Brussels sprouts and now I don't have to eat the rest because I didn't like it. That's okay. So showing them how to appropriately refuse foods and accept new foods or even try new things. And again, we'll look at each of these in more detail, starting with our detective work. So it's really easy to think anecdotally about meal times and think, oh yeah, it seems that, I feel like all he ever eats is strawberries. But keeping a food journal, and anybody who's ever had to diet probably knows this strategy. Having a food journal can be really helpful to actually write down the time of the day that they ate. What was the food that was offered? How much of that food was eaten? Where were you when you ate that? Were you in the kitchen? Were they at school? Who was with them? Because over a couple of weeks of keeping a food journal, you might start to see some patterns emerge. And again, it might be, oh, well, they would eat this at school, but they have never eaten this at home, even though we did offer it to them. And it seems if, we offer this in the morning, he's more likely to eat it than if we offer it in the afternoon. So again, you can really start to see some of those patterns and maybe even identify the causes and some core issues around it. So in order to do our detective work, we need to get our evidence, right? And then remember how powerful that communication is. And again, sometimes our learner just does not have the language yet to tell us what they're feeling around trying new foods or even mealtime in general. So we need to help the learners understand how to remain calm and how to be positive. We need to be very clear and consistent with what our expectations are, whether it's our expectations for slowing down while we're eating or for trying new foods. Use visual tools. First you eat your chicken and then you get whatever your preferred food is, but you need to try this first, 5 bites of this, and then you get something that you like. Use social scripts. So this could be when I go to a friend's house, I might be offered different foods than I normally eat. This is how I deal with that situation. So, again, talking through and modeling what behavior you want to see can be really powerful for a lot of our kiddos. And then help them communicate, right? We want them to be able to communicate their wants and needs because often that's the source of some challenging behaviors. So if we give them the tools and teach them the skills to tell us, no, I don't like that, I would rather have mashed potatoes, then that's good. We want that kind of communication because even if we're working on, but I want you to eat other things besides mashed potatoes, that's going to be the first step. Right? So even starting with just, can you communicate your wants and needs? Then we can help them learn to express their feelings and their stress levels. It's really hard to identify your own emotions sometimes and to be able to communicate those with others. So how can we do that? How can we use visual supports and modeling and social scripts to help our child express their feelings when it comes to meal times? And you can model talking about food, right? So again, if I'm talking through like, oh, look, this is a new food. I've never had Brussels sprouts before. I'm going to take one bite to try it. And look, we can smell it. Again, being a good model to talk about how we talk about food so that our students will learn how to do the same thing. And then help your child identify the underlying issues. They might be able to communicate, well, what don't you like about this food? It's too soft or it's not the right color. Okay, they can help you with that by asking them questions about why they don't prefer certain foods over others. And we also want them to be able to communicate other types of physical needs as well. So whether they don't want to eat because it hurts their throat, or they have a sore throat, or their stomach hurts. Maybe they're full. Maybe they're just not hungry. Not every, our kids aren't going to be hungry at the same time as us, even if we think that they should be. So, well, I'm hungry. Shouldn't you be hungry? Not necessarily. So having them be able to tell you, um, I don't like the way it tastes, or it doesn't taste like anything, or maybe I have a headache. You can use a choice wheel visual like this, and you can include any types of visuals on here that are appropriate for your child. And again, the visuals, the choices might be, I don't like it, it tastes bad, I want something different. So again, they can use that choice wheel to communicate their wants and needs with you. And the anxiety and stress around food is very real, just like anxiety and stress around transitions and common routines and where are we going, and expectations at any other time of the day can be stressful. So if it's anxiety, then we need to be aware of this and find the cause. What's the cause of the anxiety? Is it because something is new, or because I've had a bad experience and now I have anxiety when it comes to eating because somebody forced me to eat something I didn't like one time, and now I'm worried that that's going to happen? Whatever the cause of that anxiety is, we can support that, and we can practice coping strategies before trying new foods. Okay, this is what it's going to be like. This is how we try new foods. This is how we can say, nope, I tried it, I don't like it. Know that some days are going to be harder than others, right? Some days we might be a little bit more willing to try something new. Other days it's going to be a flat, nope, not going to happen today. And that's okay. Same with any kid, right? Some days you can get them to eat the broccoli, and other days they're like, nope, I'm eating nothing but mac and cheese. And, it's just a day. So it's okay to let those days slide, and, be accepting and non-judgmental in your reactions, because we don't want to increase the stress on our kiddos. If they think that they've let us down, or we're not meeting their expectations, then that's only going to make the anxiety increase. So, we can try to encourage them to eat new things and try new things, but we have to be very careful and reinforcing in that process to avoid making it worse. And here's a helpful tool. And again, this is a visual that we have on our free home supports website, having a no thank you card. So the no thank you card is just a simple visual. They can put the food right there on, you can change out the icon. So salad, no thank you. And then they want just the mashed potatoes. Okay, great. Because again, at least you're teaching them an appropriate behavior. This is the appropriate way to refuse food, rather than screaming or throwing the food on the floor, or having what we would think of as a meltdown over it. So teaching them the appropriate behavior is a step in a positive direction. So give them the means to do that. And again, we're always modeling skills for our student. So if you want to see them do it, then we need to be a good role model. And we can be very, we can exaggerate everything they're doing. This is so good. I like it. It tastes delicious. Because even that's just going to get your students' attention. Like, why is mommy making those silly faces around this food? And hey, we have their attention now. Maybe we can get them to try it. And it really helps to get your point across as well. Sometimes we need to be very big in our responses in order to maintain that attention. And talk about the food, talk about eating, like, I like this salad because it's crunchy and fresh. And, it can kind of feel a little awkward at first because you feel like you're narrating yourself, but that's okay. Because again, you're providing a model for the language as you think through food. And that's what you want your student to be able to do. And again, be positive and encouraging. And if they even allow the food on their plate, that might be the first step, and you really reinforce that. Great job not throwing the broccoli. Oh, the broccoli is on your plate. Great, good job. You touched it. Awesome. baby steps. That's good. That's a good way to start. So we want to think about, what eating behaviors do you want to model for your learner? As a parent, I mean, that was one of the first things I know I thought of, is like, oh, I'm going to have to start eating more healthy foods if I want my own child to be a healthy eater. So if you have even more severe eating challenges, then we need to be very aware of the behaviors that we're modeling for them. So selective eating, a very big issue when it comes to kiddos with autism and other disabilities. Here are some examples of selective eating, or what we think of as a picky eater. Sometimes it's eating only certain foods or certain brands of food. So Chelsea will only eat chicken nuggets from McDonald's. She won't eat any other chicken nuggets. Jackson only eats the orange goldfish crackers during snack. That's the one food he'll accept for snack. He won't eat anything else. Another example might be that desire for sameness. So having a meltdown when the banana is cut into slices instead of being presented whole. I eat bananas, but nope, somebody cut it into slices, not going to have it. Or Julie will only drink out of her sippy cup. These are very common developmental stages that all children go through, but when they get stuck in one of these stages, that's when we really need to push past it. Because trust me, like every child at some point has gotten mad because his banana was cut the wrong way. But again, we've learned to move past that, and if we're stuck there, that's when we start to see these challenges. Sometimes it's a preference for or an avoidance of certain textures. So some kids only want soft foods or mushy foods like yogurts or pureed foods. Other kids want salty and spicy foods. Some can't stand any kind of spice, not even a hint of salt or pepper. Others need overwhelming spice or flavor in order to taste it. And that's because of the sensory under or overstimulation. Some kiddos will avoid whole food groups, right? And not even like, oh, vegetables or fruits. Some will only eat white food, right? The food has to be white. Crackers, rice, bread, and not brown bread. It has to be white bread. And you better not put the crust on there because they're not going to eat that part. Or Alex has only tried vegetables once, and he has never tried another vegetable. So these are all very common issues around, common examples around selective eating. And so some of the causes for this is, again, like those sensory differences. If I am very sensitive to taste or smell, then I might want my food to be very bland, that I can't take a hint of pepper or spice, or really strong flavors, right? So I want very mild tasting food, like apple or pears, things like that are very mild in flavor. Others are the other way. They're very understimulated when it comes to taste, texture, or smell. And so they want the crunchy ones, the hard food, beef jerky that they can rip with their teeth. Very salty food or very spicy foods. I've seen kids eat food that I'm like, oh my God, I'm sweating just watching you eat that. I can't believe you're eating it. And they act like it's nothing. And I'm like, wow. So that's just relating to those sensory differences. And it's not just about taste. Remember that taste is only one aspect of eating. We also have smell and texture. So any of those sensory differences related to those different senses can impact our selective eating. Another is the desire for sameness in the food and the presentation. So if we are very strict in our routines, we like things done the exact same way every single time, then yeah, you put the banana on the wrong plate. That's going to throw me off. I'm not going to eat that banana. You cut it into slices. The slices are the wrong size. Whatever the issue is, if the food is not presented in the exact same way every time, then I'm less likely to eat it. Or there could be underlying medical concerns. And, it could be, again, this is a case where you'd want to consult your doctor or a specialist. There could be an underlying undiagnosed food allergy. And so certain foods might actually be causing distress or discomfort. And our students have just figured out, you know what, when I eat bread, I don't feel so good. And they don't know how to convey that. All they know is when I eat this, I don't feel so great. How can we figure that out? So knowing that maybe there's a gastrointestinal issue, or maybe they're having tooth pains, if they are cutting new teeth or their teeth are loose and falling out, that might affect their eating, if they're having a dental issue. So all of these things might be an underlying cause that's presenting as a different type of eating challenge. But once we address the medical issue, then the eating will get back on track too. So it's important to rule these things out when thinking about increasing your child's diet. So how do we address selective eating? It's so challenging, and I've just known so many parents that this is their biggest concern. He won't eat anything, or I'm worried that he only eats these few things and he's not getting a well-balanced diet. And yeah, it's real, and it's real for a lot of us. So the first thing that we're going to do is we can choose a food, we can choose an eating behavior, and we can set up the environment for success. And then we're going to do the same thing. So we're going to keep it consistent. Let's look at each one of those steps. So first is choose a food, right? So how do I know what kind of food to target? If my child only wants like soft foods, probably shouldn't try to get them to eat, a crunchy taco or something like that. So think about, what does your learner eat now? They eat soft foods like ice cream. Okay, great. It's something that's familiar, it's preferred. Find a food that's similar in a lot of ways, but different. So if they will only eat vanilla ice cream, what's something that's, again, like kind of a sideways move in thinking about food? Maybe vanilla yogurt, and maybe you start with like that really creamy, rich type of yogurt instead of like the more acidic, like Greek yogurt. Again, like try to make it as similar as possible, but hey, it's a little different. If they only like blue corn tortilla chips, what is something else that's crunchy? It maybe is the same shape that we can introduce to them, so it's not too big of a jump. Something similar. So let's try to think about some lateral foods with some examples. So the first one is French fries. And I'm like, why would anyone not eat French fries? Well, some people won't eat French fries. So what would be a good lateral food if this is the only food that your child will eat? Maybe veggie straws, right? They're the same shape. They are a little bit crunchy. So maybe we could try introducing that. They're not fried, so it's a step in the right direction. If my child will only eat tortilla chips, what is something that I could offer or try to introduce? It's not too big of a jump. Maybe tortillas, right? If I eat corn tortilla chips, maybe they will eat corn tortillas. Phew, so sorry. This sneeze came out of nowhere. My child will only eat apples, which is great. I can introduce green apples, right? Maybe my child will only eat red apples. Well, let's try a green apple, right? It's the same food, but it's a different color. And if that's a challenge, that's great. Now we're generalizing our apple skills, right? And that's a good move. Fruit snacks. Oh my gosh, I've known so many kiddos that will only eat fruit snacks, or who really prefer fruit snacks. Maybe raisins or other types of dried fruit that give them that same kind of gummy consistency, and it's still sweet. So think about the foods that your learner currently enjoys. And I like Shannon's example, sweet potato fries. if you're saying like a good lateral move might be to tater tots. Yeah, offering potato, right, in a different format. So it's not too big of a leap, right? We can generalize to it. So think about a food that your learner currently enjoys and think about what would be a good lateral food that you could practice with. So then we want to think about an eating behavior to target. So now we've got our food. We're going to try vanilla yogurt, see if we can get them to eat it. But what exactly is the behavior that we want to see them do with the food? And there's a lot of ways to interact with food. Forcing them to eat it is going to create a negative experience. And that could be one of the reasons why they have anxiety or some eating issues now because of a past experience. So we want to make sure that we're introducing new foods or textures in very small steps. So we might not even start with, will you eat the food? There's lots of ways. Maybe we can start with looking at it or touching it, not even with, maybe with your fingers or touch it in the container, like hold the vanilla yogurt container, use a spoon to touch it. That's okay. Will they allow you to put it on the same plate as the rest of their food? Can they smell it, kiss it? I know that sounds odd, but just touching it to their mouths, lick it, take a small bite, or will they chew it? Will they swallow it? Here's a great visual that even gives them a choice. How do you want to try the new food? Are we just going to look at it? Or do you want to touch it? Do you want to listen to it? Whatever they need to do just to interact with the food, it's going to be a way, it's going to be a place to start. So it doesn't always have to be right off the bat eating the food. We can work our way up to that. And you want to model this process for them, right? So show them how you would think through this with eating the vanilla yogurt, right? Model different ways to interact with it. Like, oh, look, it's a little drippy. I pick it up with my spoon, or it smells like vanilla. It smells like ice cream. And oh, it doesn't make any sound. Or I'm just gonna lick it. So you can model all those ways to interact with food with them and talk about it and make it a game, make it fun, keep it positive so that, again, you're keeping their attention, but you're not causing any anxiety around it because you're not going to force them to interact with it in a way that they're not ready for. And then set them up for success. Make sure that we're doing these things in very consistent ways because predictability is very important for our kiddos with autism and other disabilities. And really, predictability is great for all of us. And so if they know that at dinner, I'm going to be presented with this new food at the same time, in the same place, in the same way, that's going to help me get over some of that anxiety around it because I know it's coming and I have strategies for coping with it. And I know that it's going to be fun and it's, a positive experience for me. So yeah, so pick a consistent time. Are we going to do this at lunch? Are we going to do it at dinner? Are we going to do it at the dining table? Are we going to do it in the kitchen? Use consistent mealtime items. So again, like have foods that your child enjoys while we're also presenting them with this new food because we want them to see like this can go with all of the stuff that you like. And then present the foods in a very consistent way. You might start with the food on a separate plate, right? That's the learning plate, while all of their accepted foods that they're eating are on a different plate. That's their eating plate. And present it that way every time so they know they don't have to be anxious about this new food being with their food and whether or not they're going to be expected to eat it right away. So just thinking through like what works best for my family. When is the best time for us to do this? And we talked earlier about reinforcement. And again, it's the biggest driver of behavior change. So we always want to make it motivating. We always want to reinforce when they're trying or when they're doing their best. So use social praise, of course. Yay, good job. Oh, I'm so proud of you. Oh, you touched the food. Good job. And give them high fives and tickles. reinforce the good trying with a preferred item if you need it. So if they allowed the food to sit on their plate, or if they touched it with their spoon, great job, and then give them one of their preferred items if needed. You can use that first then language. So first smell the yogurt, then you get a tortilla chip, so that they make that connection. Well, I do one thing that I don't really like, but I get something good after. And then make sure that they do have their preferred foods available, so they know that I don't have to feel anxious about not eating, because the foods I like are here. It's just this other new food is here as well. And if I interact with this new food, I'm still going to get to access all the things that I like. And you might also make it fun by having other preferred activities available too. So maybe we're, doing bubbles, or we're listening to our favorite song, or watching a video when we're doing our learning food, right? It doesn't have to be all the way through dinner, but during that one time when we're trying the new food, I get to watch my favorite video. But be cautious about using a highly preferred food as a reinforcer, just because we don't necessarily want to set that up like a one bite scenario, because we want to be able to fade it out. So it might also make it just by making it contingent on this thing that I don't like, again, you can kind of you might actually make it more of a negative experience. So just be cautious. And if you see that the highly preferred foods are becoming distracting as a reinforcer, or if you're not seeing progress, then that might be one of the reasons. But reinforce good trying. And again, it might not be, oh, you ate all of the vanilla yogurt, you get a reinforcement. But hey, you know what? You sat there and you allowed that vanilla yogurt to sit there next to you for the entire meal. Great job. That's a good first step. I'm going to give you reinforcement for that. And then repeat it. So once you get some progress with that food, whether they allow it to be there, if they taste it, if they start eating it, great. So you might repeat this process with the same food until you get the desired result, which could be eventually them eating it. And then you can start with a new food. Different foods, you might be introducing different foods at different times. So this process might be going on with several foods, and that's okay. It's just, remember that we're going to start small. So even if they're not just suddenly eating all of these new foods, we're going to measure progress in those small ways. Like they didn't throw it on the floor, it sat on the table the whole time, or they actually smelled it, or even took a little taste. Like that's huge. They didn't eat the whole thing. They tasted it and they, then ignored it. But oh my gosh, that's amazing. So celebrate that and keep that in mind. Because next time, maybe you can encourage that one small bite. And then again, the next time. And eventually they're like, you know what? I do kind of like this. And now they're taking those bites on their own. So it takes some patience and commitment, but the end goal is worth it. Another great way to expose your kids to new foods is just to cook with them. Even if they don't eat it, they might enjoy interacting with the food to cook it. And they might enjoy that routine of doing it with you. Again, it's like a fun, engaging activity. They might like the idea that they're going to make something and then serve it to their loved ones. But there's no pressure to actually eat it. But, it could also mean that, oh, I made this. Maybe I'm more likely to eat it because I did interact with it in so many ways. In our links curriculum, we include a lot of different cooking recipes, just very, very simple things. So again, just students can interact with food in fun and creative ways, even if they're not necessarily foods that they eat. But at least we know they've had this sensory exposure to them, and they can feel proud that they created a recipe. Hopefully that would help motivate them to eat it. So beware of some common pitfalls, and that is one, don't remove the safe foods, because if you don't offer the foods that they will eat and try to make them eat the foods that they don't want, you're only going to further limit what they eat. So now they're not eating anything, not even the safe foods. So we have to really be careful. We don't want them to stop eating in general, right? Because the only options we're giving them are the things that they don't want. So encourage them to try the new foods while still giving them those things that they like. If mashed potatoes is all that they eat, keep giving them the mashed potatoes and try to introduce the new things. Don't take the mashed potatoes away because now they're not eating anything. We also want to be careful about hiding or disguising foods in preferred foods. And I remember this was like a thing for lots of kids, like, oh, you want to get your kids to eat more veggies, puree carrots and put it in the spaghetti sauce or things like that. First off, our students can be very, very, very aware of any change to a recipe, right? So if I were to try to mush up carrots and put them in the spaghetti sauce, chances are they're going to know that something is different with the spaghetti sauce, and now I'm not going to eat it. But if you try to hide or disguise new foods, that's often the outcome, is now you've just eliminated another food because they're like, uh-oh, this food doesn't taste the same. Now I'm not going to eat it. And then you might also create, again, some anxiety around trying even the foods that they considered safe before, because now they're worried that it's not going to be the same, that something's different about it. So again, that's working against us. We're taking away foods that they previously ate rather than increasing the foods that they will eat. So it's better to be open and say, hey, I want you to try carrots. Let's be open about that and work through the carrots together rather than trying to sneak them into the spaghetti sauce. So thinking of that lateral food that we chose earlier, does your learner interact with that food now? So have they ever had the vanilla yogurt, for example? And if they do allow it to be there, or whatever step they're on now, what's the next step that we could move to in those eating behaviors? So if they allow it to be there, then maybe we could try smelling it, or maybe we could try licking it, or just touching it to our mouth, or playing with it with a spoon. So observe, like, how do they interact with that food now, and what's that next step that we can encourage in the process. And remember, we want to start really small, so it's okay if we're just taking these tiny little baby steps in this process. So let's talk about overeating and undereating, both of which are common challenges with autism spectrum disorders. So some students will eat more food than necessary. For example, Kyle has a tantrum when he isn't allowed to eat 4 servings of pasta. Or Lily eats pizza to the point of making herself sick, right? Like, she loves pizza so much that she won't stop eating it until it's gone. Others will take food without permission. So if you don't give access to the cookies, well, Jasmine's going to climb the fridge, up on the cabinets, up on top of the refrigerator in order to get to that box of cookies. Or Dwayne takes food from his classmates' plates at lunch. That is a very common behavior that a lot of teachers are struggling with in the classrooms. It's like, how do I keep them from taking other people's food? Eating too quickly. So Shri has trouble waiting for others to be served and finishes her meal in less than 5 minutes, right? So eats so fast. Raina eats so quickly that she gets an upset stomach, and her family's worried about choking because she's not even really chewing. She's just, eating it as fast as possible. Undereating examples, again, is eating less food than necessary. So Chloe's mom can only get her to eat by putting food out and kind of letting her graze, right? So she'll take a bite and then do something, and she just kind of wanders, and she's a grazer. Definitely have had those kinds of kiddos in my classroom. Or Charlie eats so slowly and needs a lot of reminders to keep eating, right? He gets distracted or he'll wander off. It's really hard to keep his attention focused on the food and what he's doing. Some kids will only eat in certain environments. So Patrick hardly ever eats at school, even though his parents send all of his favorite foods in his backpack. Well, we know these are all his favorites, but he won't eat them at school. He only eats them at home. Jordan eats more food when they are alone than with a group of people. So anytime we go out to a restaurant, maybe they won't eat, but when we're at home, when they're by themselves, yes, they will eat a normal sized meal. So possible causes for both over and under eating, it could be a coping mechanism for anxiety and stress. And some of that anxiety could be around food availability. Food's very reinforcing. I mean, food is very reinforcing for many, many people. So when food tastes good and it's something that we really, really enjoy, it can be really hard not to stop eating it. So when it's available, like the pizza, I'm going to eat as much of it as possible because it just tastes so good and it's just so reinforcing. When other people are eating Oreos or, you know, my favorite chips, I can't stop myself from taking it because it's reinforcing. I'm like, oh, chips, my favorite, and I'm going to eat them. We don't have the skill yet of understanding, nope, that's not mine. It's not appropriate to take food that's not on my plate. Some kids are very just motivated by food and that's their reinforcer, and they have very limited other motivators. Then they're going to eat a lot and all day. But not everybody is. And that could be true for the undereaters, is that they're not motivated by food. Food just, you know, is not super reinforcing for them to the point where they lose interest after a couple of bites and they wander off, right? Because they're like, I can think of better things to do. I can go play this video game or look out the window, and the food just doesn't really interest me. So sometimes we need to think of ways to make it more interesting to them. And just like anyone, sometimes we can use food as a coping mechanism for stress, because again, the world can feel very overwhelming. And if we have more control over food, if that's one thing that we can control, whether it's just getting all of the cookies or limiting what I eat, that can be a way of exerting control upon my environment that otherwise I don't feel I have. Another possible cause is that we just don't get that satiated feeling. So no matter how much we eat, that mechanism for telling us that we're full maybe is not fully developed within our bodies. So that could be due to medications that we're on, or sensory or physical differences. You know, it's a sensation. We know when we're full. So if we don't have that sensitivity to that sensory information, I just never feel full, even though I will eat until I get sick. And that's how basically I know I'm full, because I just threw it up. Or maybe I just don't feel hungry, or I'm not attuned to what that feeling feels like in my body. It's like, yeah, my stomach is rumbling. So what? What does that mean? We don't have that connection between that means I'm hungry and I need to eat. And sometimes it's just around the mealtime routine itself. So understanding the expectations around mealtime, like, oh, when I sit and eat, I eat my food slowly. I chew each bite. I have this much time to eat. I don't rush. I don't go too slowly. This is the routine. This is how I'm going to be presented with the food. All of those routine aspects around eating. So how can we address overeating or undereating? Again, we're going to minimize that stress and anxiety. So that is a great way to think about challenging behavior in general, is how can we take the anxiety out of it? We can make mealtimes predictable. Again, predictability is a big key with autistic individuals. We can add supports to help them understand the expectations and the routine around eating. And then we can keep nutrition in mind as well. So minimize those stressors and teach coping strategies. If you know it's the anxiety around the food that it's super motivating, maybe we set them up for, you know, yes, food tastes really good. What is something else that feels good that I can do? After I eat 2 pieces of pizza, I can then get my squishy ball that I love, or my stuffy that I like to rub on my face. Maybe these are ways that, you know, you can help minimize that stress of, oh my gosh, the food tastes so good, and I'm using it as a coping mechanism. Maybe some more exercise. Again, you're getting exercise, you're building those endorphins, and you're finding more natural body processes to give that same kind of feedback that food can when it comes to stress and anxiety. Oops, I'm so sorry. Just clicked all the way through. And have meals at the exact same time. This is, again, it helps to reduce that anxiety, right? I don't need to worry about when is food coming. We are going to have dinner at 6 p.m. We have lunch every day at 12:30. Always have those students who are like, lunch, lunch, lunch. And we have to remind them, oh, we have lunch at 12:30. Lunch is at 12:30. And, if you make them that visual, they are satisfied with that. And they're like, great, lunch is at 12:30. And they are all ready for lunch. And limit distractions, right? Turn the TV off, make it a calm, relaxing environment, right? So that they know this is the expectation that we're going to sit down and we're going to engage with the food, whatever that is it looks like. Have them sit at the table, right? That's the rule. You sit at the table when you eat food, food belongs on the table. Use a timer if your student eats too fast or if they eat too slow. Have a timer can be used for either way. You need to keep, we're going to sit at the table for 30 minutes, so you don't need to rush. Or, hey, you're only here for 30 minutes, so you need to make sure you stay on task. And then add in those reinforcers. So if you need to add bubbles or a reinforcing activity during the meal in order to keep them engaged and sitting at the table, that's okay too. Visuals are always a big, important piece to any type of routine or skill that we're trying to teach our student. There's no way you can overdo it on visuals because they're only going to support their understanding. And again, it's something that we use. We use visuals to help us understand new concepts or new skills. So help them understand when meals are going to happen. First, I get dressed, then I use the restroom, and then I'm going to have breakfast. So again, creating that predictability, decreasing that stress around it. Like, okay, these things are going to happen, and then it's going to be breakfast time. And I know at breakfast time, I'm going to be given an egg, and I'm going to be asked to interact with it. But I'll also have my favorite food, which may be bacon, available to me. We want to make those expectations very clear. We also have visual supports for portions and pacing. So we might use a stop visual, right? When they've eaten enough. Okay, stop, that's enough. Or they're eating too quickly. Oh, stop, or slow down, to make sure that they're pacing their bites out. They're not just, shoving lots of food in their face and swallowing before they've actually chewed it adequately. You might give a smaller plate so that the portion size is controlled. You might use a divided plate so that you see the individual portions of the food. And when it's all done, it's done. There isn't more. Maybe avoid putting, the whole bowl of salad or the whole pizza on the table in front where everyone can see it. Just make sure they can only see the portion that they're going to be allowed to eat. Use a placemat. This is a visual that we have in our home supports. We use it in the school environment as well to, again, help them learn how to visualize and portion the food out. This also can help with not taking other people's food, or at least learning that skill, because they learn that, oh, this is my placemat. It has my name on it. I eat the food that's on here. I don't eat food that's on somebody else's placemat that has their name on it. And we have visuals around taking bites, or again, just pacing. Okay, you've taken one bite and now you take the second bite. Oh, look, you've got 3 more bites to go. It's especially helpful if they need some redirection, right? Because they are not, they tend to wander off, or they're just not that interested in eating. This is an example of a hunger and fullness scale. And this is something that you might refer to throughout a meal to help your child learn to pay more attention to what it feels like. Just like when we're potty training and we have to teach them what it means to feel like they need to go to the bathroom. What does that feel like? It's hard because we're not in their bodies. We don't know what they're actually feeling. We need to teach them to recognize it. So using a visual like this might help them learn to recognize, you know what, I'm way down here at the, 1, 2, or 3. I'm hungry. I can keep eating, but 10 means I am way too full. I want to be somewhere here in the green zone where I'm not too hungry, but I'm not too full. I'm satisfied. And so encouraging them to understand this, and again, modeling it, and talking about, what does a 1 feel like? Well, one feels like, oh, I'm dizzy. I feel weak, right? Like, oh, my stomach is growling and it hurts because I'm so hungry. But a 4 might be like, maybe I could eat. Like, I don't really feel super hungry, but I don't feel full. Whereas a 10 could then be, I am physically sick because I ate so much and I feel nauseated. So again, helping them to understand what that scale means, and to recognize that how their body feels throughout a meal can really help with that. And again, a great skill to model and talk through on your own, so that they will learn how to do that. And sequence strips, right? So if there are different routine expectations, if you have a kiddo who won't eat anywhere but at home, maybe we need to help them understand how to eat in a different environment. So when we go to a restaurant, we wait in line, we get to our chair, we can choose foods, then we eat, and then we pay for it. So again, that predictability and that consistency, as well as decreasing the anxiety around what's going to happen, might be what is, what is that barrier around eating in a different location. So if they don't eat at school, but they eat at home, again, maybe using routine visuals that are consistent from place to place will help them to generalize these skills to a new setting. And we always want to be aware of the nutrition. So, be aware of calories versus nutritional content. We want to try to add in foods with higher nutritional content, protein and fiber. We want to encourage them to drink water or to stay hydrated. That can be a real struggle. Some kids just won't drink water throughout the day. So maybe they will drink something else. Maybe if they only drink juice, we can work on offering more diluted juice and, kind of work our way to just drinking plain water. And if there are concerns around the nutritional makeup of your child's diet, then that's definitely another time when you want to talk with a professional, whether it's a doctor or a food therapist or someone who has that expertise. So what supports can you add to mealtime to help your learner understand expectations? Do they need a pacing visual, or will a different plate size help if they are, overeaters or undereaters? Changing the size of the plate, offering some visual support. What are some of those that you can add in to into mealtime to help your student at mealtime? Right, so a couple more mealtime considerations. Again, we talked briefly about motor issues, and if a child has gross motor or fine motor issues, that could also affect their ability to chew and swallow. And so even beyond actual motor function of chewing and swallowing, they might have difficulty manipulating the eating utensils. So maybe even providing some type of adapted utensil that will make it easier for them to feed themselves. And then again, working with a professional that will help to identify some of those motor issues and teaching them those skills. So those are often, you can get occupational therapy or physical therapy that help develop the muscles they need in order to be able to appropriately, grip a spoon or a fork and be able to get it to their mouth. Because maybe that's the reason they only want crunchy finger foods. I've known a lot of kiddos who will only eat things they can eat with their fingers because they didn't like manipulating the fork or spoon or a utensil. And sometimes they could. It wasn't even a motor issue that prevented them from doing it. It just wasn't preferred. They didn't like holding it. They also didn't like holding crayons or writing utensils. So they just didn't, in general, enjoy holding things in their hand. So that made it more difficult. But knowing that, it will help me to target a new behavior. So again, if you think there might actually be a motor issue involved in your child's eating issues, then definitely consult with a professional. And then also talk briefly about pica. And pica is when a person eats or puts non-edible items in their mouth. There's a lot of different reasons why pica can occur. Could be a medical reason, a dietary reason, sensory, or behavioral need behind the eating of non-edible items. And sometimes it's everything goes in the mouth, and sometimes it's very specific things. Again, sometimes it's just they explore the world with their mouth. Then so they are always putting things in there because they're just understanding it in that textural sensory way with their mouth. Just like, again, developmentally, all children go through that stage at a very, very early age. And sometimes that can be the need. Or again, sometimes certain dietary needs cause this urge to eat certain inedible things. So always consult with a doctor in that case to help figure out what could be the reason. If it's a certain deficit, then that can be addressed. Sometimes it's just not understanding that certain things are edible and certain things are not. We've played lots of games in the classroom where, is this safe to eat? This is not safe to eat, right? And sometimes it's just understanding, nope, there are certain things I do not put in my mouth. I might want to, but I can't. Like, this does not go in my mouth. Sometimes, again, it's getting that sensory input. Sometimes it's a coping mechanism, and that just, again, it's helping them to self-regulate in some way. Again, there could be a deficit, like an iron deficiency, that's causing a drive to eat certain things. Sometimes it could be an attention-seeking behavior, or it could be an escape behavior. So if you're asking me to do something, I'm going to put all this stuff in my mouth because that's how I'm going to get out of doing whatever it is that you're asking me to do. So just like any behavior, we need to rule out something medical behind it. And then if it's a behavioral issue, then we can address that through behavior change. And again, I have a tendency to talk about a slide before I show it. So again, practicing like what is edible, what is not edible, replacing the inedible item with an alternative. So if I like to put round balls in my mouth because I like that sensation, can I replace it with an edible alternative like a gumball or something? Can I rule out some medical issues? Do I need to add some structure or some predictability? Again, is there an anxiety reason doing this that I need to address to help them understand the expectations? And then I can respond to behaviors for attention or avoidance in the appropriate way as well. So here's some of the behavioral considerations we think about around eating. And one is escape or avoidance. So again, they don't want to eat it, they throw it, or it ends up on the floor. Okay, so from a behavior standpoint, what can I do in this situation? And one thing I would think to myself is, well, how can I make this more motivating? How can I offer a way to let them learn that not throwing the food or not having a tantrum, but engaging in the appropriate behavior, like saying no thank you or I don't want it? How can I replace the behavior so that they will learn to engage in that replacement behavior and the new skill rather than the unwanted behavior? So how can I make that motivating? How can I offer reinforcement? Sometimes it's access to something preferred. So they want to watch TV instead of eating, or they climb the shelves to get the food that they like, right? So whether they're trying to avoid the food or they're trying to get access to the food, how can I make my expectations clear? You can only get cookies at snack time. Once snack time is over, there are no more cookies. So we don't climb the shelves. Or how can I make the expectation that you can say, I want a cookie, rather than climbing the shelf to get a cookie? And how can I help them to communicate that need to me rather than engaging in that unsafe behavior? If they want to watch TV instead of eating, maybe that's a first then. Oh, first eat, then TV. So the TV can be the reinforcer for engaging in the meal. Let them know when TV time is and turn the TV off during eating so they understand that, no, we don't watch TV while we're eating. These are the expectations. Here it is in the visual. No TV until we eat. So eat first and then TV. If it's for attention, so your learner laughs as you chase them back to the dinner table, and everyone laughs when they take food from somebody else's plate. Or maybe they get a lot of attention when they take food. Oh, no, 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 don't do that. We don't take other people's food. You need to give that. You can't have that. I'm taking this away, and don't do that anymore. We're given all this verbal attention for that negative behavior, and in essence, we're reinforcing it. So how can I limit attention for those negative behaviors? Make sure I provide lots of positive attention when they're doing what they are supposed to do. So if they are laughing as you chase them back to the dinner table, you can get them back to the dinner table with a visual, with a prompt, with a very concise direction. Sit down at table. You can limit eye contact, limit that verbal attention, and don't chase them. You know, sometimes you might not get them back to the table. Sometimes it might take a while, but you're also not teaching them that, oh, if you run around, I'm going to chase you. And now we're having a fun game instead of eating. And make sure that everyone at the table understands that expectation so that nobody's reinforcing. So if older brother is the one that laughs whenever he steals food from somebody else's plate, oh, that's so funny. Make sure they understand that, no, we don't reinforce this behavior, and this is why. We don't want to encourage this. We want them to do the replacement behavior instead. So make sure that everyone at the meal understands the strategies that you're using and what the outcome is. And when they're sitting at that table, instead of running away, oh, you're sitting at the table. I love it when you're at the table. Good job, buddy. Oh, I'm so proud of you. You're going to earn an extra treat tonight. So they're still getting access to the attention they want, but for the right reasons. And then there's the automatic function for behavior. So these are some of those sensory issues that we don't have as much control over. So your learner spits out food, or they eat until they're uncomfortably full, right? They eat until they make themselves sick. So again, that's engaging some sensory responses that are really out of our control. So how can I meet their sensory needs? Why did they spit out the food? Was it too crunchy? Was it too salty? Was it not flavorful enough? Are there medical issues to rule out? Or can I use that visual to help them understand when they're too full and not to eat until then? Some of those pacing visuals, because we just need them to understand what the sensations in their body means and how to appropriately respond to them. So wrapping up our discussion, remember that eating challenges are very common, and there are a lot of different factors when it comes to challenges at mealtime. And it's not just students with disabilities. All children have some eating challenges at some point or another. And there are many small ways that we can improve their eating habits, whether it's just exposing them in very, very small steps to try something new, or adding some structure or consistency, visual supports around the mealtime expectations that are going to help them to be successful. And remember that it's very important just to be patient and make sure that you have a support system, that everybody in the house knows that this is something that we're working on, so that everyone can reinforce those behaviors that you want to see, and everyone knows the plan in place. So on our website, we do have a lot of mealtime visuals that are free for caregivers. If you go to our website, which is starautismsupport.com, you can access these free home supports on our homepage. It's a big orange button. You do not need a login, or you don't need to create an account or anything. They're free for everybody to use. I'm going to pull it up in just a second, but we have a wide variety of resources on there. We have different activities and things to do at home. We have visual supports for all kinds of routines, not just meal times, but behavior supports, going to different places in the community. We had a really great unit that we did a couple of months ago, which was taking like a trip, so like traveling visuals, which was really awesome. I saved those because mine is going on an airplane ride for the first time. So I'm creating a visual schedule about how we ride on the airplane. And we also have a variety of free support webinars for caregivers around all of these topics and more. So those are always available. If you want to know more about these topics, go in. They're very quick and easy to watch. So I'm going to pull up the website just so you can get a quick peek at what these resources look like. So again, right here on our homepage, there's a big orange button. If I click on free home supports, I have 3 different buckets with the home support webinars, home activities, but under the home visual supports is where all of our visuals live. So here under family routines, lots of mealtime visuals. So mealtime rules, the no thank you cards, requesting strips, lots of different icons for food. So you can build choice wheels, or you can you can use those icons for the no thank you strips, snack food icons, that choice wheel about trying new food. So how do I want to interact with the food? And then those pacing visuals. There's a lot of other routines here as well, like helping around the house, morning routines, bedtime routines, chore charts, all that good stuff. In addition, there is behavior support. So if you need more support around the appropriate behaviors, creating visual schedules, token boards, social skills, fun with family. I like this one too, because again, it's teaching a variety of social skills and within the family environment. So playing games, how to talk about our emotions, how to choose a free time activity. So lots of great visuals available there that I hope that you will check out. So yes, I am available for questions. That wraps up the presentation, but I will stay on. We have until 7:30, so I'm available for questions. And just FYI, you can follow us on a variety of social media accounts. We also have a podcast called Autism Annex, and it's a really informative podcast. We talk to a lot of individuals with autism about their experiences. One of the last episodes was a youngster that we started working with in pre-K who just went off to college. So it was really cool to talk to him about that journey and his family as well. So it's a good way to stay up to date too on all the new resources that we have available. So yes, I'll stay on for questions. And at the very end, we also have a